Okay, welcome to PISFIS. Before we begin, I want to remind the Public Safety, Finance, and Strategic Support Committee members and members of the public to follow our code of conduct at meetings. This including commenting on specific agenda item only and addressing the full body. Public speaker will not engage in a conversation with the chair, council member, or staff. All members of the Public Safety, Finance, and Strategic Support Committee, staff, and the public are expected to refrain from abusive language, repeated failure to comply with the code of conduct, which will disturb, disrupt, or impede the orderly conduct of this meeting, may result in a removal from the meeting. This meeting of the Public Safety, Finance, and Strategic Support Committee will now come to order. Can the clerk office please call the roll?
Councilmember Tordillos?
Here.
Casey? Here. Mulcahy?
Here.
Kamei?
Here.
Chair Dwan?
Here.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. We're taking a look at the nothing on the work plans. We're going right to the consent calendars. There are 2 items on the consent calendar. Do we have any public comments?
There is no public comment.
Okay, does any council member have comments or concerns on the 2 consent items? If not, I would like to hear a motion, please.
So moved. Second.
There we go. We got first and second. Let's vote. Now we're back on item D1. It's the fire department inventory control over controlled substance audit report. And there is a presentation PowerPoint by the city auditor, Joe Royce, Allison Pauley, and Maria Val.
Good afternoon, Joe Royce, City Auditor. I'm joined in the box by Allison Pauley and Maria Valle from my office. Also in the box is Chief Robert Sapien and Deputy Chief Steve Bowie from the Fire Department. We're here to present the audit of Fire Department's inventory controls over controlled substances. This audit was added to our work plan following a request from the Fire Chief in April after containers of controlled substances were found to be damaged and suspected to have been tampered with at a fire station. Following an investigation, the San Jose Police Department arrested a fire captain related to these incidents. Our audit focused on inventory controls in place starting in April 2025. I'm going to turn over to Allie, who's going to talk a little bit about the background and the findings. And then we'll leave some time at the end for the fire department's response, and then we're open to questions.
Hello, Allison Pauley from the Office of the City Auditor. Per the city's contract with the County of Santa Clara, fire has supplies of 2 substances that are controlled by the DEA. These are administered by paramedics to provide advanced life support. The 2 substances are morphine, used for pain management, and midazolam, used to treat seizures and for sedation. These medications are ordered by the EMS division and stored at a central facility until EMS staff distributes them to fire apparatus. Our audit had 2 findings that focused on the 2 parts of this process: the management of the medications stored on fire apparatus and the central supply management. So our first finding focused on the fire apparatus. The finding was that policies require securing controlled substances on the fire apparatus but should be clarified to reflect current practices. The first thing to note is that we reviewed the controlled substances at 17 fire stations over several different days in summer of 2025, and we found no evidence of theft or tampering. A few key controls to highlight that fire has in place: medications are kept locked and bolted to the apparatus. Paramedics are doing daily verifications where they inspect every vial on their apparatus. A witness is required to be present, and the paramedics are instructed to report any discrepancies immediately. Both these controls were expanded and strengthened in April and May of 2025. Fire uses electronic records and records in their system an ID number so that each vial can be tracked individually. These controls are in line with what we saw in other jurisdictions. There are a few aspects of fire's current inventory management practices that should be formalized into policy. These include clarifying the requirements for daily and periodic reviews of the controlled substance boxes, storage of medications on reserve apparatus, and the protocols for remote handoffs of medication. One other note is that fire is in the process of acquiring biometric safes. Once fire has those safes in place, they should revise the policy regarding access monitoring and usage. That first finding was all about the fire apparatus out in the stations and in the field. The second finding focuses on the central supply. The finding was that separating the duties for central supply management would strengthen inventory controls. Again, to start off, I want to say that our random audit of the main safe in the summer of 2025 showed no evidence of theft or tampering. A fire captain is the Controlled Substances Program Manager. That position oversees the central supply, which involves receiving, labeling, securing, distributing, and destroying medications. What we found is that this is too many duties to be concentrated onto one position, and fire should split up the responsibilities to ensure the security of the medications. For example, the Controlled Substances Program Manager's responsibilities include system administration for the department's inventory management software, entering and reconciling information within the system, and handling medications, which includes receiving and distributing them to stations and collecting and destroying expired medications. So our recommendation is to separate these duties to improve the security of the central supply. Fire should assign medication handling, system administration, and certain record-keeping duties to separate staff. We also noted a few additional security measures and policy updates. Because the safe can be physically accessed by one person, having a camera or a biometric safe would provide a record for who's accessing the medications. We also recommended conducting periodic inventory counts and having management regularly review inventory reports. Lastly, we recommended updating the policy in a few areas, including to specify the process for what happens when a vial is suspected of tampering and when the county should be notified. That concludes our presentation. Our report had 7 recommendations. We ask that you accept the report and cross-reference it to the December 16th meeting of the City Council. With that, we will turn it over to Chief Sapien for the administration's response, and then we're available to answer any questions.
Thank you. Robert Sapien, Fire Chief, San Jose Fire Department. I want to first begin by thanking City Auditor Joe Royce, Allison Polly, and the entire team for, one, agreeing to include this audit in the work plan for this year, for expediting the audit, and for the focus and diligence in conducting it and engagement with our department. We fully understand the findings and fully agree with the associated recommendations and are working to expedite implementation, the longest of which will be completing the procurement of those biometric safes and the associated policies. But we have most of them actually fully drafted in terms of those recommendations. So with that, I thank you and I stand ready for questions.
Well, thank you for the presentation. And I know that, Chief, you've been working hard to make sure that we include the biometric safe controlled substance program. And I want to make sure that our department will comply and go above and beyond the biometric. Is the biometric program have an automatic login system where every time is being used, it would have a centralized recorded system to who's logging in and when are they logging out on it?
Thank you for the question. The short answer is yes. First and foremost, only credentialed employees will be able to access and have their biometric data stored for that access. And each access will identify who's been responsible for opening that safe at that time. And then there will be policy requirements that will require documentation of why that entry occurred.
Thank you. And do you have a timeline when this, procurement of the biometric and the implementation of it?
The timeline is difficult to pin down. We have completed really virtually all of the administrative steps necessary to move the procurement forward, but that process does have steps that aren't fully in our control and do take time. However, I do want to point out that in the interim, Chief Bowie, who leads our training and EMS bureau, did implement an interim solution, which is hardened safes that change the way we store the controlled substances. They are not biometric and don't have instant record of who made access, but they are far more secure in terms of who can make access by way of key, and certainly hardened in terms of some of the concerns we had for previous containers that could be breached physically more easily.
Well, thank you. Thank you for keeping our community safe. And thank you for doing a good job with our department. And now I'm going to go to Councilmember Rosemary Kamei.
Thank you so much, and I want to thank the auditor and his team for putting this on your work plan and really working very quickly. And also, I also appreciate all of the time that you spent in terms of the one-on-ones and the briefings. That's very, very helpful. So I just want to say thank you. I also want to thank the chief for your responses, and looking at the timeline that you hope to get this going is very quick. And you've acted very quickly, so I just want to appreciate your department and all the work you do to make sure that you can get this done. So with that, I would like to move acceptance of the report and refer and cross-reference the audit to the full council.
I believe Councilor Mulcahy would like to address.
Yeah, that was a motion.
I'll second it, but I do have something to ask. Thanks for the report. There I am. So I think you've accepted the 7 recommendations, and I was going to ask about the timing, but I know it's as quickly as you can do it based on process. On the issue of ongoing sort of internal auditing, what are you thinking about, right, rather than waiting for an incident to happen and then we do the city auditor's role? What are you thinking about in terms of ongoing auditing of, this is a much more robust program that you're installing around these controlled substances. So what will you do moving forward?
Thank you for the question. I think I would best describe it as we have implemented what I would describe as hyper-stringent auditing on a daily basis, both daily and at any time there's an exchange of responsibility for inventory, or any time there's a use or access to vials, right? So I think going forward, what we're going to be evaluating once the biometric safes are in place is what is the frequency of auditing from there forward, because the daily and for cause audits do take a lot of time, and they're really more access points than maybe are necessary and prudent. So the short answer to your question is we're doing daily audits today, and then also for cause.
So, I mean, we're responding to a very unfortunate circumstance, right? And so it would seem like daily would be appropriate, but moving forward, probably isn't daily. What are you thinking about long term? Like, what's the legacy coming from this so that something like this never happens again?
If I could just jump in. So one thing, improving internal controls never reduces risk to zero. But you can put a lot of controls in place. Now, to answer the question, I think about from an audit standpoint, what does auditing look like within the fire department? So it's not my office. A couple of the recommendations. One thing that's already occurring are monthly inventory reviews out at the apparatus by the controlled substance program manager. So we had a recommendation to kind of formalize that to make that more specific. I mean, if I could look at the specific language about the frequency, scope, and required documentation of those reviews. So that's one of the recommendations. Out at the main safe, we also had a recommendation to implement regular inventories of that. So it wasn't us going out and doing that inventory, but the CSPM and other staff within the fire department to do that kind of that inventory check, which is a standard practice, and just put that into policy and formalize it so it's ongoing. So those are a couple of things from a internal audit standpoint within the fire department that are kind of covered in some of the recommendations, and as the chief said, they're intended to do moving forward.
Great, that's helpful, thank you.
Okay. Let's, any other question or concerns or comments? All right, let's vote.
Motion passes unanimously.
Thank you. Second item, we have City Council Focus Area Status Report, increasing community safety. Presentation will have Jennifer Shembry, Chief Sapien, Captain Donahue, and Andrea Shelton. And John Risto. That's John Risto.
Good afternoon, members of the committee. Jennifer Shembry, Deputy City Manager, and I am the sponsor of the Increasing Community Safety Focus Area. I'm going to be doing the presentation from up here, but we have a great team in the box who them and their teams are actually doing the work, and we'll be happy to answer any questions that you may have. So our purpose today is to share what we are learning through doing the work while building the infrastructure for a culture of learning. Our agenda today, we're going to go through Focus Area 2.0. We did this with you on September 30th with all of the focus areas, so we'll just do a brief background on that. We're going to do a portfolio review of the Increasing Community Safety Focus Area, and then we'll talk about some next steps, including how we're going to incorporate this into the budget process. So on the Focus Area 2.0, much of this work involves cultivating an organizational mindset of learning with these values. So some important key points of this is that numbers alone do not show progress and require some context setting, which we'll be doing with the committee today. Learning in public builds that trust and accountability. We're also learning through retrospection, and that contributes to learning and understanding. And then that progress requires humility, iteration, and commitment, and psychological safety for execution. And what we mean by that is that it's important that the team feels supported to test new approaches and talk about those failures in public. We will be talking about a couple of things that we're still working on in today's presentation. And so these are the different types of questions we are asking within our focus area and when we do our retrospection. And these are things that we are looking for the committee. We invite you to ask similar questions such as these, like what are we learning? What are we observing? What type of support do you need? And so at the September 30th council meeting, we shared the purpose of the logic models underpinning the focus area, and that is that they help us clarify how our work is intended to create impact by clearly aligning strategies with problems and articulating testable assumptions that we can learn from and adapt to. And as I mentioned previously, on the September 30th focus area, or on the September 30th presentation, we went through the entire logic model for increasing community safety. So we are going to be brief on that in this presentation. So this is the City Council approved evolution of Focus Area 2.0. To visualize and define, these are the components of that model, which tie long-term and near-term efforts, making them measurable. So we have a long-term goal, we have problem areas, which then we have near-term goals and metrics assigned to those, and we're also looking at indicators in each of those long-term goals. These are what we've been working on since September 30th. So on September 30th, you approved that Model 2.0. And since then, we've been doing training, retrospectives, and republishing public dashboards. And this is critical in building that infrastructure for long-term impact. So now I'll go into the portfolio review. So as I mentioned, we have a lot of context that was already shared in the September 30th meeting. So I'm just going to go over in the following slides some new data, some brief status updates, and key lessons that we've learned in the last couple of months. So looking at our indicators, some really good news here. The long-term goal here is that San Jose residents live in a community with responsive emergency services and safe streets and roads. And while we still have some more work to do, as we've talked about, that indicator of resident safety perception is up. Year over year, 9% more residents feel the city is safe, 5% more feel their neighborhood is safe, and 9% more feel that downtown is safe. Looking at the first problem area of emergency response, that police priority 1 response compliance is up 2% year over year with an 8% decrease in call volume. And fire priority response compliance is also up 2% year over year with a 10% decrease in call volume. And these are the goals that are assigned to that problem area of emergency response. So here we have 5 goals for this year, and 4 out of 5 of those are considered to be on track to meet the goal. And we have 1 that is yellow at risk, which I'll talk about in the next slide. So some lessons learned in emergency response. In police recruitment, the police department did see an increase in enrollment of women in the October 2025 Police Academy. Despite some challenges in meeting the 40 recruit class size goal, there were 31 recruits hired, including 8 women. The lateral officer hiring increased, which is great news, with 5 total hires during Q1. The police department is adjusting efforts to focus on local recruitment based on lessons learned. And then we have also completed the police report transcription pilot, and that was successful in that we completed the pilot, and that definitely showed that the tested tool was not mature enough and is not what the department needs to be successful. But what was successful is that it helped us learn what we do need and to evaluate an alternative, which the department is currently looking at some additional promising projects. So in problem area 2, which is crisis response, we have 3 goals here, and all 3 of these are on track. Some lessons learned in this area. We have the 911-988 call transfer program in here. We had a goal of transferring 75 calls over to trust. And if you remember on the September 30th presentation, there was some concerns we may not meet that. But really happy to report that the department and the county worked together on some training investments with our 911 communications staff. And that was to increase staff knowledge and confidence with transfer protocols. And that resulted in a significant increase in transfer volumes to 988 and to trust. So in September and October of 2025, staff transferred 193 and 178 calls respectively to 988 and trust. This is an over 10% increase compared to prior transfer volumes and surpasses the goal of 75 call transfers per month. We did also learn, the first responder fee program, that line personnel play a critical role in public messaging, and we've done some early training and updated FAQs to make sure that we're successful for that program launch in January of 2026. And on county coordination, we did do an info memo recently on our co-response and alternative response programs, but we have learned that recent city and county updates reinforce the need to align crisis response programs, such as trust in the PERT transition. The third problem area of crime reduction, we have seen year over year a 12% decrease in crimes against persons, an 8% decrease in crimes against property, and a 5% increase in crimes against society. So overall, some good news there as well. And in this problem area, we've identified 5 goals. 4 out of those 5 are considered on track, and I'll talk a little bit further about the one that is yellow and at risk in the next slide. So under organized retail theft detail, we submitted nearly 250 cases to the DA's office in Q1, and the investigations are resulting in successful filings, which is great news. On the Mission Street Recovery Station, we were negotiating with the county to send additional things to Mission Street. Those negotiations are taking longer than anticipated, but we've recently gotten that back on track thanks to the good work of staff, and we've identified a mutual solution that should allow for increased referrals. So we're hopeful this gets resolved in the next month or so. And then I just wanted to highlight work of PRNS in the SJ Youth Empowerment Alliance. They successfully identified partnerships with one priority school and 2 demonstration sites to support strategies with a January 2026 launch. And then the 4th problem area of traffic safety. We are happy to report that we are now reporting KSI data with a reporting lag for severe injuries. KSI was down 10% year over year based on more recent data from Q2 of last fiscal year. And with more recent data, traffic fatalities were down 29% year over year based on Q1 of this fiscal year. And in this problem area, we have 2 goals. The first goal is green, and the second has 2 parts to it. The first, we would say, is on track, and the second is at risk, yellow, to no fault of our own, and I'll explain that in the next slide. So on the automated traffic enforcement, really good news on the early red light camera operations. We've gotten that on, it's on track and off and running. It does show high violation volumes, especially in one certain intersection at South 3rd and Keys. And then the second part of that is the speed camera progress. That is delayed, as you all know, due to federal administration and the recent shutdown. But staff is proceeding, and they're applying lessons from the red light program to minimize any future delays. So what is next? We are going to be incorporating this into the fiscal year 26-27 budget process. And here's a timeline that shows how that will work. So the kind of major key components of that would be in January, it would be incorporated into priority setting, and that will cultivate a discussion that supports the City Council articulating its priorities in advance of the Mayor's March budget message. That would get incorporated into the Mayor's March budget message, which then we would incorporate into our proposed budget. There's going to be a budget study session in May, where the administration will embed focus area learnings into that study session, and would also include recommended changes to the following year's focus area work. And then the direction from that would be incorporated into a manager's budget addendum, an MBA, which would be approved with the budget. So with that, I am happy to turn it over to our team in the box to answer any questions you may have.
Well, thank you for the presentation. Do we have any public comment?
There is no public comment.
All right, well, thank you. We're going to go to Councilmember Kamei.
Thank you. I want to really thank and recognize the team, and I know it's not just those in the box, but those out in the field who are doing all the work. You know, over the last few years, we've come a long way, and I think that this framework, in terms of putting it all together, really has been, I really think it's wonderful. So I want to appreciate that, because I think that we've been sort of moving along, trying to get it to a point where we can see it all together as opposed to individual departments. And I think it's been, you know, a lot of success. So, you know, I want to recognize that. I also want to recognize, you know, even in the section where you have traffic safety, there were 850 warnings issued. That's a lot of, you know, sort of people running the red light. And I think that, you know, once we start actually sending those fees out to those who have run the red light, it'd be very interesting to see the reaction to some of that. But I think that it's been good. I think it's been something that has helped us along the way. On retail theft, I know that PD has been working really, really closely with those in who are being affected, many of the retailers, and so that coordination with PD has been really great. So I want to say thank you. I think that on crime reduction, the cameras have been such a wonderful use. I know that there's some apprehension of some members of the public, but I think overall it's just been a great program. I want to say that the San Jose, working with Leyva Middle School and, bringing these others, I think set a good example of what maybe others can do. So I look forward to the outcomes of what happens there, because I think that if we can start with our youth, it's going to be critically important for the future, especially those at risk. In terms of emergency response, I want to thank the chief for really, trying to get out there and do the recruitment. I know it's not easy, but I'm really delighted that the numbers are going up, and we want to see them going up, and we will continue to take a look at that, and that's something that I think is worth celebrating. There's probably other things that I didn't include here, but I just want to say thank you for the whole team and those who are out in the field actually doing the work. So I hope you can communicate that back to the staff, because it's a coordinated effort, and I think that the way that you've set it up with this logic model makes a lot of sense to me, and I think that it's a benefit for the community. So with that, I want to move to accept the status report.
Thank you, Councilmember Kamei. We're going to go to Councilmember Torrijos.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you, staff, for this report. Particularly excited to see the early data around the traffic enforcement with the red light cameras there. And I think seeing, over 400 violations just in the first month at that single intersection, bit of a jarring number, but I think shows that we actually did our homework in terms of finding an intersection with persistent issues. So hopefully, as we see the actual fines associated with these coming online this month, we start to see that number go down over time. Was curious if we had any insight into what a timeline for actually getting the grant funding for the automated speed cameras would be, if we have any visibility there.
Thank you, Councilmember John Russo, Director of Transportation. So the grant totals $8.5 million, and it has been held up, as Deputy City Manager Schember pointed out. We've actually been working with our attorney's office to resubmit those grant applications based on a favorable court ruling that stayed the new language that was being required by new administration. So I don't have a date when that would get freed up. We've submitted all our paperwork back to them now. It's been at least a month. We're just waiting around for that to occur. I am not going to guarantee that would actually get freed up in time for us to move forward, but we're going to try to keep both paths moving forward, a federally paid for path and then a non-federal path. So we're negotiating with the vendor right now to proceed with either one of those paths to get these cameras in place next year. No date, though I can't give you a date.
No, I appreciate that, and I understand that a lot of this is outside of our control, but I'm glad to see that the city is doing what we can to make sure that we're ready when the funds do become available. The only other question I had was around the Mission Street Recovery Center. There was mention of trying to get additional referral types there, and reference to having some sort of compromise that we think we've reached with the county. Was curious if we could hear a little bit more about what types of cases we'll think will be added to the referral list there.
Eric, would you be able to answer that question?
Yeah, I could jump in on that one. So the Mission Street Recovery Stations, the police department has worked to implement some really innovative programs to bring, DUI, narcotics offenders, nonviolent instances to that center for services. Our interest is in expanding the types of referrals to include, I think council direction at the time was all nonviolent offenders would be eligible per officer discretion. And so those are the things that we're exploring and working through what the exceptions are. Certainly if there's a higher degree of public safety component, then that wouldn't be considered. And so we're really working on exploring, like, what are the types of instances where services rendered by the recovery station would lead to successful outcomes.
Thank you, and that concludes my questions.
Thank you, Councilmember Tortillas. First of all, I want to say thank you for the presentation. Thank you for keeping our community safe, including reducing our unsheltered residents and keeping our neighborhood clean and growing our economy and building more housing, and all in this Model 2.0. Regarding our police department, you guys did a fantastic job in arresting the 13 individual at the Kim Hung jewelry store. And I hope we will continue to arrest the last remaining, including the organized group that had plagued the whole Bay Area with this smash and grab. I do have a question for the police department regarding recruitment. With the amount of academy and recruitment, will the department able to offset all the attrition rate, and including people who are separation from the police department?
Steve Donahue, Captain for the Police Department. Thank you for your question, Council Member. As you know from the presentation in October to this committee, recruitment's difficult for the police department. The social political climate in the country is really tough to recruit police officers right now, and our recruiting unit's doing an exceptional job trying to find new and innovative ways to do that. I think some of those ways are going to be very, very fruitful for our agency. For example, the working with the military and going into the opportunity to, before somebody discharges from the military, they have 6 months to prepare for a job, and we can get into that niche and then try to help them, acclimate into a job upon release from the military, things like that. So I can't say for certain that we will be able to overcome the attrition, but I do know that we have bright outset with the military recruitment that we're doing, the local recruitment that we're doing. And we are seeing an increase in our numbers. We're seeing more females participate in our academies, and we're seeing our numbers pick up. So hopefully we're going to be able to get to that tipping point very soon.
Thank you. With our recent redistricting in your department, did that help increase the response to our citizen call?
Thank you for your question. That's actually my project. Yes, redistricting theoretically is going to decrease our response times. So we're running 2 pilots right now in our Western Division, one for district-wide dispatching and one for 2-person cars. Upon the redistricting of the department, our expectation is that we will be district-wide dispatching, which means that the closest unit will go to that call for service as opposed to a unit particularly assigned to that area who may not be as close as someone else is at that time. So that would, of course, theoretically speed that up. The other thing is that it's a redistribution of personnel based on call volume and workload. So what you'll find is that those districts that have higher call volumes and higher workloads are going to become smaller in geographic size, and that will allow for the officers to respond quicker and be more readily available to those calls in that area. So yes, theoretically, we will be able to reduce our call response times upon redistricting.
Thank you, and I just want to say Captain Tran in my district has been extremely responsive to the citizen needs, and I just wanted him to be recognized for that. Thank you. Chief Sapien, I know that Station 32 is on track to open in June of 2026. We're still aligned with that particular goal?
Yes, Council Member, we are looking springtime ribbon cutting for Station 32.
Oh, I'll look forward to that, including Station 8 here coming up pretty soon. Has the reopening of the Med 30, have you found it hopeful with many of the aspects that Med 30 can support our department?
Thank you for that question. As you're aware, the redeployment of Med 30 was to occur early December. That is in process, so too early to make an evaluation of outcomes. But we do anticipate, based on a reevaluation of Med 30 duties and the support needs for our EMS division, that it will, of course, have some benefit.
Well, thank you. And the last question for you is, we talk about the first responder fee program. Where are we on that? And I know that we're looking to launch it in January of 2026. And I would imagine the line personnel is clear of their responsibility and how they communicate that to our resident out there.
Yeah, thank you for the question. Yes, we are on track for a start in January 2026. Right now, we're in the process of engaging the community in a variety of ways. We provided an issue-specific webpage. We have availed ourselves to community meetings. In fact, I have one tonight in District 8. And then we have printed materials that will be available for distribution that will look just like this as we go out there. And our responders have received a round of training through, I think, a process you're familiar with, which is called Seldom Used Skills, which happens once or twice a year, where they received some training on how the process will work. They will also have the handout material available for each call that they go on. They can leave information behind. And I think as we had described early with City Council, what we are able to have our responders tell the community is that we are looking for insurance information, and that our residents will not be billed directly otherwise. That's all we're looking for.
Fantastic. Thank you. Thank you again. I want to emphasize how grateful we are for the work of the fire department and the leadership. I do have a question for John Risto. Now, I know we've been, the OLIVE program been implemented. As you well know, we're lack of what you call safe parking site, and I've been working with Eric Sullivan to find a few spots there in District 7. As we play whack-a-mole in a sense, recently we did abatement on District 7 on 7th Street. Now I've seen a plague of RVs, if you will, right there on Lucretia at this point. As of last night, I counted about 7, including some commercial trucks that, is illegal to park out there on a public street. What can we do about that, John?
So currently, we are doing another citywide inventory of oversized lived-in vehicles. We should wrap that up in about a week. So we'll make sure that Lucretia has been reviewed and make sure it's in that potential list. That inventory that we're doing right now is to inform us for the next 6 months of program for OLIVE. So if Lucretia is meeting that sort of criteria, we'll make sure to count that in that inventory. In terms of, I think you also mentioned South 7th, and that's one of our problem areas right in your district, and we've been there multiple times. And so the next steps on those sites are we will be bringing to council right after the first of the year the locations we're going to recommend permanent tollway signage, and that was included in the first MBA that created the OLIVE program. It asked us to look at 10 potential locations. We're looking at up to 15. So the 7th Street is one of those continual problem areas, and that is definitely on our list to look at. And then we will be reviewing all those sites with each council office that's going to have one of those over the next month or so. So there's a plan to effectively permanently sign these places that are problem locations, and then we've got another inventory for a whole nother round of olive program starting in January. So should be some more coverage through the city for that. Just to mention again, there's another program we're going to start up that's been funded by council that's going to be a supplemental to Olive program. Olive goes after the large sites. We've got one that's going to start up that's going to be just a smaller scale effort going after 1 or 2 locations of some of the lived-in vehicles. That'll start after the first year as well. So I think we're going to try to cover a number of things within the existing programs and then that new one.
Yeah, I just want to clarify for the residents that prior to abatement, DOT and code enforcement going out there with our nonprofit organization, making sure that we offer location, we offer help for our unsheltered resident prior to the abatement. Is that correct?
Yes, when there is actually shelter to be made available, and that's our housing department will do that. So they do that outreach, and if there is, whether there's a spot at one of the safe parking locations for a vehicle to move into, or if there is available short-term shelter, our housing department intervenes in all of that and then does that outreach prior to the abatements.
All right, well, thank you very much. And for Andrea, I just want to say thank you to PRNS. I know that it's heavy burden too with Beautify SJ and many other activity throughout the city, and you guys have been doing a fantastic job. I just want to say thank you. So other than that, any other questions or comments? Nope, I don't see any. Let's vote.
Motion passes unanimously.
All right, well, thank you so much. We're now going to open forum. Do we have any public comments?
Yes, Blair, please make your way down to the podium.
Hi, thank you, Blair Beekman. I'm very worried that BAYUASI, the federal agency in charge of emergency preparedness and planning for local Bay Area communities, may be going through some considerable changes in what may be the future direction of BAYUASI. And yet from this, BAYUASI approval authority may not be seeking much needed simple additional good help, ideas and choices, and advice from other local Bay Area governments and communities at this time. It seems concerning as local Bay Area governments and communities, please continue to ask questions and for clarifications about what exactly can be the future choices of BAYUASI emergency preparedness and possible upcoming BAYUASI changes that will be much affecting the future of local Bay Area communities. Thank you. I wanted to comment that I'm understanding that you're currently being, City of San Jose is being sued in a way by the taken to court by Electronic Frontier Foundation over your use of surveillance technology. And your police department has had too much of an easy access to surveillance technology is the argument. And they're accessing it in ways that are questionable. In being from San Diego this time, we're trying to make a really strong fight. It's still in the beginning stages that a warrant has to be served, or has to be prepared after a 24-hour period of initial data collection, that you have to have a warrant in order to see the data. It's a good case. I think it asks important questions at this time, and perhaps most importantly at all, for me, these questions are offering that I think San Jose put in way too much surveillance technology. And you guys are now trying to deal with that. We can really do the same amount of good public safety work with a lot less tech, really. And I hope you guys work on that, and that we're not building our future at this plateau of good police.
Back to the committee.
Well, meeting adjourned. Wish everyone happy holidays.